Randasya Yananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya-Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rūpa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rūpam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanja kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Rūpa Śikṣā series of seminars, teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Rūpa Goswami. In the last class, after discussing the brief history and life of Srila Rūpa Goswami, we began with the actual discussion of Sri Chaitanya-Caritāmṛta Madhya Leela, chapter 19. We saw a brief overview of chapter 19, a few of the sections, and in the beginning, text 1 to 12 is Rūpa Goswami's preparation to meet Lord Chaitanya. Rūpa and Sanatana have already met Lord Chaitanya and Ramkeli, and they got the mercy. And now they are planned to completely retire from the Nawab's duty and full-time join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. So Rūpa Goswami does his preparations. He divides his money 50% to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, 25% to the family, and 25% he keeps as personal emergency. And there he feels that Sanatana Goswami might require some money, so he keeps it with the grocer, understanding he might have some difficulty. There Sanatana Goswami feels that the Nawab is pleased with him and he feels an obligation. So he feels somehow if the Nawab becomes angry at me, then it is the best. So on that pretext, he stops going to attend his duties at the king's court and gives a pretext that he is having bad health. And the kayasthas, the clerical and the secretarial staff, being very greedy, they understand and they start becoming expert in their duties so that they can ultimately occupy Sanatan's post. Here, the Nawab is concerned, and then the Nawab sends his, before that, Sanatan Goswami is absorbed, sitting with the Brahmanas and studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is where we stopped our discussion in the last class. So we will continue our discussion from here. We read quite elaborately the commentary of Srila Prabhupada on, Bhagavata Vichar. Prabhupada gives a very exhaustive commentary, and he speaks about Paravidya and Aparavidya. Paravidya and Aparavidya. And it is very interesting to know, anyone knows, just like today we have our institutes, VIH, Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education. MIH is now MI, Mayapur Institute. It was before Mayapur Institute of Higher Education. So like that, we have, based on Prabhupada's instruction, these two main institutes in this holy dhams. Does anyone know what was the institute name of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur? Anyone knows? Can raise their hands. What is the name of the institute where transcendental knowledge, like the Bhakti Shastri, Bhagavatam courses were conducted under the Gaudiya umbrella? What was the name of that institute? Anyone knows? Can raise their hands. Any idea? So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Gaudiya Math Institute name was Paravidya. That was the name he had given. That was the term he had given. And just like we study in our Bhakti Shastri, Isha Upanishads, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, and Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had a standard where his disciples is to study the 11 Upanishads. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had scholars and Sanskrit teachers from South India, especially from Karnataka, Mysore, who were specially called to Gaudiya Maths to teach these Upanishads. So that was the standard. During Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur time, the standard was everyone would go through the 11 Upanishads. And then Bhagavatam and other courses were also there. So it was, the standards were very, very high during that time. So Paravidya was the institute name of this Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So we finished this for discussion. Now we'll go to the next verse. Next, after that, as Sanatan Goswami is sitting in with the Brahmanas, giving the pretext that he is having bad health, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, what happened? Or text taking, or dine Gaudeshwara sange ekajan achambite gosai sabhate kailagaman. While Sanatan Goswami was studying Srimad Bhagavatam, this is from this previous verse connection, in the assembly of the learned Brahmanas, Gosaini Sabhate, one day, Aradin, the Nawab of Bengal, Gaudeshwar, the Nawab of Bengal is called as Gaudeshwar, and another person suddenly appeared. Sange ekajan achambite kaila agaman. Suddenly they appeared. Prabhupada's purport. So one line purport. The full name of Nawab of Bengal, Hussain Shah, is Alauddin Sayyid Hussain Saha Sherpa Makkah. And he ruled Bengal for 23 years, from 1422 to 1443, Shatabda era, that is 1498 to 1521. Sanatan Goswami was studying Srimad Bhagavatam with the scholars in the year 1424. So, Aradina means one day, but Prabhupada in his purport is not giving exactly which day it is, but which year Sanatan Goswami was studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, from which year to which year the king was ruling. He gives a understanding. Mainly all these details of especially any holy place, if you see in the Chaitanya-Caritāmṛta, Prabhupada gives a detailed explanation that this holy place is 12 kilometers away from this railway station, and this is how you can reach. So all that information we find in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary on the Chaitanya-Caritāmṛta. Prabhupada is repeatedly just repeating that. So I guess and presume that these dates also are there in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Anubhashya. So from there he must be giving this. Patasha dekiya shabe sambrame uthila sambrame asanadiya rajara vasila. As soon as all the Brahmanas and Sanatana Goswami saw the Nawab appear, dekiya sabe, they all stood up. Uthila. How? And respectfully. Sambrame asanadiya rajara vasila. Respectfully gave him a sitting place to honor him. Now, Prabhupada in this purport goes into a detail as to explain why the Brahmanas and Sanatana Goswami got up when the king entered. Why did they respect him? And why did they serve him by giving an asana? What is the reason? Prabhupada gives a very nice explanation in the purport. Although Nawab Hussain Shah was a Mleccha Yovana, he was nonetheless the governor of the country. And the learned scholars and Sanatana Goswami offered him all the respect due a king or a governor. So although he was such a low-born Yavana, but he was on the post of a governor or a king. So because of that, Sanatana Goswami and the Brahmanas gave respect. There is a deeper reason also for that. When a person occupies an exalted executive post, one should consider that he has acquired the grace of the Lord. So be it a king or a governor or a magistrate or a high position in the government, it's because ultimately you had done some punya, and then by Krishna's grace, you have got that post. So ultimately they gave respect because they saw that, the Nawab has attained the grace of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, 10:41, Lord Krishna says. So how we can understand that he has got his grace? Prabhupada is giving a reference from the Gita. Yad yad vibhutimat sattvam shrimat urjatameva va tat tad eva gachatvam mamatejam shasambhavam. Know that all opulent, beautiful and glorious creation. Yad yad vibhuti sattvam shrimat urjatameva. Spring from but a spark of my splendor. Tad tad eva gachatvam mama teja amsha. They are just my tej and not full tej, just a amsha. It is just, but not even an amsha, it is a spark, tiny spark of my splendor. So the post of a governor or a king is ultimately, there is some teja, they have some teja, and that's why they have got that post. And that is grace of the Lord, and that is coming from Krishna. That is the point. So Vibhuti Yoga is a very, very important chapter in the 10th chapter of the Gita, how all the vibhutis we see in this world ultimately should remind us of Krishna so that we can be Krishna conscious. Whenever we see something exalted, we must consider it a part of the power of the Supreme Personality of the Lord, of Godhead. A powerful man, Vibhuti Sattvam, is one who has obtained the grace of the Lord or has derived some power from him. So ultimately, by the grace of the Lord, he has attained this post and he has attained some power. In the Bhagavad Gita 7:10, Krishna says, Tejas, Tejas Vinam Aham. I am the power of the powerful. So the king is having a very powerful post. He is a Naradeva, he is a representative of humanity. Among humans, he is a god among humans, Naradeva in one sense. The learned Brahmana scholars showed respect to Nawab Hussain Shah because he represented a fraction of Krishna's power. So this is the reason why Sanatana Goswami and all the Brahmanas respected the king. Now, here is a very important principle we should understand. Although all vibhutis come, from Krishna, what are vibhutis? Vibhutis are that which really attract us. All opulent, beautiful, and glorious creation. These are attractive. These vibhutis, because they are having power, they attract us. Now, instead of getting attracted to them, we understand the source of that vibhuti. That is Krishna. And Krishna, that's why is establishing that in the Vibhuti Yoga. So ultimately, these vibhutis are coming from Krishna. So we can remember Krishna and appreciate Krishna and be Krishna conscious. So ultimately, these vibhuti come from Krishna. That's why Krishna is identifying with himself with all these vibhutis. Like Tejas, Tejasvinam Aham. Whatever Teja you see, the source of all the Tejas is I. And one little spark you can see in this personality. So, what must be Krishna's stage? So like that, when we think, we are thinking about Krishna. So that is Vibhuti Yoga. But here we should understand all powerful kings who are also representative of Krishna, like the saintly kings like Yudhishthira Maharaj, Maharaj Bharat. They all represent Krishna's power. And being attracted to them because they are following dharma will ultimately take us to Krishna. But not only that, even the demonic kings like Genghis Khan or say Hussein Shah, their power is coming from Krishna. But ultimately we recognize that power is coming from Krishna, but it doesn't take us towards Krishna. This is a very important point to be noted. It doesn't take us towards, by following that particular king, it will not take us towards Krishna. So we recognize that the power is coming from Krishna. At the same time, we don't follow that particular king. Like beauty, all beauty comes from Krishna, because Krishna is the source of all beauty. Aham sarvasya prabho, matta sarvam prapatte, in one sense. So all beauty, what you see, it's ultimately coming from the all beautiful Krishna. So in that sense, if you see, there is a beautiful woman, so let me see her. Ultimately, this is a vibhuti coming from Krishna. So that will not take us towards Krishna consciousness. It can take us away from Krishna consciousness. So similarly, the Brahmanas and the Sanatana Goswami recognize the power, that this power is coming from Krishna, and that's why they respected. But ultimately, they did not want to follow him, because ultimately that will not lead to Krishna consciousness. So this is a very important point to be noted. Text 20. Raja kahe tomara sthane vaidya patailun vaidya kahe vyadi nahi shushta e dekhilun. The Nawab said, Raja kahe, I sent my physician to you, tomara sthane vaidya patailun, and he has reported that you are not diseased. Vaidya kahe vyadi nahi. Vyadi means there is no disease. Shushta e dekhilun, as far as he could see, you are completely healthy. So the Nawab was so concerned and ultimately considered Sanatana Goswami as his younger brother. Why is he not coming? And the Vaidya is reporting that he is healthy. So out of personal concern, plus there was a higher concern he had, who is going to take care of my administration of the king of the country. So he came, he personally came. Amara kichu karya sab tumalan karya chhadi rahila tumi grahete vasiya. I am depending on you to carry out so many of my activities. Amara kichu karya, all these karya duties, sab tumalan, I am depending everything on you. But you have given up your government duties. Karya chhadi rahila, to sit here at home. Tumi gharete vasiya, you're sitting at home here. Text 22. मोरा यत कार्य काम सब कैला नाश, की तुम्हार हृदय आचे कह मोरा पाश. You have spoiled all my activities. Sab kaila nash. Mora yata karya kam. Whatever all my activities, you have all destroyed it. You have spoiled it. Nash. And what is your intention? Ki tumhara hriday ache. Please tell me frankly. Kaho mora pash. Please tell it. So very frankly, the king spoke. What is your intention? Tell me. You have spoiled all my activities by not attending to the government duties. What is in your mind? Tell me. Sanatan kahe nahi amahai te kam, aar ek jan diya kare samadhan. Sanatan Goswami replied, Sanatan kahe nahi amahai te kam. You can no longer expect any service from me. Kam is not the desire. Kam means your duty. Please arrange for someone else. Aar ek jan diya to tend to the management. Kara samadhan. To tend to the duties. So when Sanatan Goswami spoke this, what is the reaction of the Nawab? Tabe krudhana raja kahe arbar, tomara bada bhoy kare das vyavhar. Becoming very angry, with Sanatan Goswami, tabe krudhan. The king Nawab said, Raja kahe arbar. Your elder brother is acting just like a plunderer. Tumhara bada bhoy kare dasu vyavhar. Now, the conversation between Sanatan Goswami and the king is a very, you can say, refined and a kind of a philosophical conversation. The culture 500 years back was so deep and so philosophical, even in ordinary activities. When people used to speak, they used to speak in such refined language with such subtle nuances because of the culture and the tradition. So here, Tomara bada bhoy kare vyas vyavhar. Your elder brother is acting just like a plunderer. Whom is the king referring to in one sense here? Anyone knows? Can raise their hands? Who is the king referring here? Your elder brother is acting just like a plunderer. It will come up, but I want that devotees should try to understand the flow of thought which is happening in the conversation between Sanatan Goswami and the king, Nawab Hussain Shah. Whom is the king referring here? Your elder brother is acting just like a plunderer. Anyone? Yes, Sunita Mataji.
Rūpa Goswami.
Any other thoughts? Anyone else? You see, elder brother of Rūpa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami. So you should have told them your younger brother and is acting just like a plunderer. Sanatan Goswami is not a plunderer. Anyone has any other idea? Yes, Virendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, it could be the companion who has come with the king. He was referring to him.
No. That's why you have to see the whole flow. When Rūpa and Sanatan were ultimately Amar and Santosh joined the king considered them as their younger brothers. So who becomes the elder brother now? Now at least I think devotees have given a good hint. So whom does, yes, Archana Mataji? Yes.
King himself.
It refers to the king himself. It refers to the king himself. So now you see the conversation, how the king, he's saying, in a very affectionate, like a family connection, he's saying, Tomara bada bhoy kare dyasu vyavahar. Your elder brother is acting just like a plunderer. Now he says, Jiva bahumari kaila chakla shabanash eta tumi kaila mora sarvakaryanash. So how the, you see the language, I'm particularly focusing on the language because today the language has degraded to such degree, even among students, even among children, what to speak of students. Their consciousness is so low that, the kind of words they use, it's, animals also don't use that kind of, animals can't speak. But just by speaking such degraded words, you lower your consciousness, you degrade your consciousness. So although the Nama was such a sinful person, but still his language and consciousness is quite elevated. Can understand in one sense. I'm not speaking from a spiritual point, but from a material point. So he is first speaking in a very refined language. He's saying, Jiva Bahumari Kaila Chakla Shavanash. By killing many living entities, your elder brother has destroyed all Bengal. So the king, being a ruler, he was attacking the enemies and killing, and conquering different states. So like that, he was killing. And now what is he saying in a philosophical language? Tumi eta kaila mora sarva karenash. Now you're destroying all my plans. I am destroying all living entities, but you're destroying my plans. So this is what the king is saying. Now Sanatan replies, Sanatana kohe tumi swatantra gaudeshwar a dosh kare deha tarafal. So when the Nawab said, you're destroying my plans, Sanatan Goswami replied. Sanatan Goswami said, Sanatan kahe, you are the supreme ruler of Bengal, Tumi Swatantra Gaudeshwar, and are completely independent, Swatantra. Whenever someone commits a fault, a dosh kare, you punish him accordingly. Deha tarafal. So the king, as a plunderer, was punishing and destroying anyone. Or you are a king, you are Swatantra Ishwar. So you can also, for my fault, punish me. So whatever that subtle obligation Sanatana Goswami was feeling, because he had pleased the king, he was feeling a kind of obligation in his heart. And now some of that obligation is to cut. And only that can cut if the king becomes angry. So now the king is become angry and he spoke like this. Now Sanatana replied, oh, you are the king. You can punish me now. So that obligation gets over. Now here I would like to bring out a very important and a philosophical concept or a principle, is the science of obligation. It's a very deep and very subtle principle. Now, when Krishna and Arjuna were in the Khandava forest, and the forest was on fire, and Arjuna dozed the fire, and actually there was a demon, Maya Danava, who was staying there. I hope I'm correct. It is Maya Danava. Anyone can confirm it? Somebody's hand is raised. Yes, Mataji. Sunita Mataji.
Yes, he is Mayadanava only.
Yes, Maya Danava. So because Maya Danava was ultimately saved from the forest fire, and he, being a demon also, still felt an obligation towards Arjuna. And he asked, how can I serve you? And, at last Krishna said, you give him a chance to serve. He wants to fulfill that obligation. And as an obligation, Maya Dhanava built a palace of illusion, Maya. There are two Vastu architects, one on behalf of the Devtas, one on behalf of the Asuras. On behalf of the Devtas is the Vishwakarma, and many of the temples, where architecture was according to Vastu Shastra given by Vishwakarma. But there is on the demon side also, the chief architect is Mayadhanava. And Mayadhanava had built this palace. And we know that there's so many illusions. And when Duryodhana entered there, he saw that it is water, so he lifted his dhoti, but there was no water. And suddenly he went in a place where he saw that there was no water, but there was water, and he fell in the water. That's where Draupadi laughed. That insult, that was really painful for Duryodhana to take. So the point here is that when we do any service, it creates an obligation. And that obligation has to be fulfilled. So Sanatana Goswami serving the king had created an obligation. That obligation had to be cut. And in this conversation, the king he leaves his post and the king comes there. They have a conversation and the king now is angry. And Sanatan saying, whatever, you are Satantra Ishwar, you can do whatever you want. So when he spoke like this, then the king says, Eta Shuni Gaudeshwar Uthi Ghare Gela. Hearing this, the Nawab stood up, Uthi Ghare Gela, returned to his home. Now, while returning, he still had attachment to Sanatan. Palaiba Boli Sanatanara Bandila. He ordered the arrest of Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Bandila. Why? So that he could not be able to leave. Palai Bali. He should not run away. So he ordered the arrest of Sanatana Goswami. Now, Prabhupada, whatever I spoke, Prabhupada about the fine subtleties of the relationship between Nawab and Sanatana Goswami, he brings out in his purport. It is said that the relationship between the Nawab of Bengal and Sanatana Goswami was very intimate. Very intimate. The Nawab used to consider Sanatana Goswami his younger brother. So the elder brother that, we saw that it was referring to the king himself. And when Sanatana Goswami showed a very strong intention to resign, the Nawab, feeling familial affection, essentially said, I am your elder brother, but I do not look after the state management. My only business is attacking other states with my soldiers and fighting everywhere as a plunderer. That verse was spoken. Because I'm a meat eater, Yavana, I'm used to hunting all kinds of living entities. So Sanatana, the king spoke like this, Jiva Bahu Mari Kaila Chakla Shabanash. Dasya Vyavahar. I'm acting like a plunderer. Your elder brother is a plunderer. That's what he had spoken. So Prabhupada is bringing out all these verses together. He's mentioning this purport here. In this way, I am destroying all kinds of living entities in Bengal. Jiva, Saba, Marwa. While engaged in this destructive business, I am hoping that you will tend to the administration of the state. Marakarya. You will take care of my state. Since I, your elder brother, am engaged in such a destructive business, you being my younger brother should look after the state management. So this was how the king was conversing with Sanatana Goswami. The Bengali verses, when you read them, it becomes more clear. Sometimes the English translation or the commentary, if you read, the bhava doesn't come out. But that's why while reading the verse to verse only, I explained the mood actually of the king. If you do not, how will things continue? This talk was based on a family relationship, and Sanatan also replied in an intimate and a joking way. So what in an intimate and a joking way Sanatan said? Tumi Swatantra Gaudeshwara. You can do whatever you want. Essentially, he told the Nawab, my dear elder brother, you are the independent ruler of Bengal, Swatantra Gaudeshwara. You can act in whatever way you like. And if someone commits a fault, you can punish him accordingly. So Sanatana Goswami committed a fault of not attending to the government duties, and he wanted now the king to punish so that that obligation can cut. That obligation can cut so that then Sanatana Goswami is free to join Mahaprabhu's movement. In other words, Sanatana Goswami was saying that since the Nawab was accustomed to acting as a plunderer, he should go ahead and take action. See, here you can see the subtle language of Sanatana Goswami. Whatever fault you see, you can punish accordingly. So that's how he said. Since Sanatana was not showing much enthusiasm for performing his duty, the Nawab should dismiss him from his service. The Nawab could understand the intention of Sanatana Goswami's statement. He therefore left in angry mood and ordered Sanatana Goswami's arrest. So that is what was happening in this dialogue, you can see. Now, I explained about the principle of obligation. With respect to that, anyone has any questions? It's very important we understand that. Before that, I will give another example about it. What is mentioned in the Śikṣā. Many years back, I had read it and I could not figure out what Prabhupada was saying in the statement. I'm not able to find it now. I did not search out and find out, but I will just mention about it. Yes, Dr. Archana Mataji, what's your question?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I would like to understand the philosophy of I would like to understand the obligation philosophy in day-to-day life. I mean, we are staying in a family, and many a times we are bound to many obligations. So, are we supposed to fulfill each and every obligation, and to what extent?
Okay, yeah, this is a very important point. Firstly, I would like to give the example of Śikṣā. In Śikṣā, in one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada mentions that the woman, just by service, this is in a material sense, and we should take it in the right spirit to understand this. Just by serving a person, she can capture him. And I could not figure out how is it. Because when a woman serves a person, by that service, there is an obligation created in the heart. And that obligation, what it does is, it binds that person to fulfill that obligation. And that's how women, by just service, they can bind a person in material world. Bind a person in material world. So this is how the principle is very subtle and deep. And that's why I gave the example of Mayadanava being a demon also, because he was protected by Arjuna, he felt an obligation. And in order to fulfill that obligation, he built a palace for them. So now let us come to some spiritual aspect of understanding this obligation, which is a famous verse in the Bhagavatam, which speaks about so many obligations which we have, and one who takes shelter of Krishna need not fulfill these obligations. Anyone knows which is the Bhagavatam verse for that? Which is the Bhagavatam verse? Anyone knows about it? It's a very famous verse from the Bhagavatam. Anyone knows can raise their hands. Which verse in the Bhagavatam speaks about these obligations which one has to always fulfill, and it is not needed for one who has taken complete shelter of the Lord? Which is the verse from the Bhagavatam? Anyone? from the audience? I would like to hear. Maya Narasimha Prabhuji, which is the verse? Yes, one devotee has raised his hand. Yes, Maya Narasimha Prabhuji. Yeah.
Prabhu, can you just once repeat, Prabhuji?
The question is that in the Bhagavatam, there is one famous verse which mentions about various obligations which we have in this world, and one who has surrendered Krishna need not fulfill these obligations.
Acha. This is Tyaktva Swadharman Charanambujam Hare.
Not that verse. Any other devotees would like to try? Yeah, this is the verse. Okay, there is one devotee. Yes, Dhanush. We'll give chance first to Dhanush. Yes, Prabhuji.
Krishna is Devarshi Bhuta Nrinam Cha Pitranam. This verse, right?
Exactly. This is the verse Prabhupada quotes about here in 1.41 in the Bhagavad Gita. Devrishi Bhutapta Nrinam Pitrinam Na Kinkaro Nayam Rinicha Rajan Sarvatmana Yaha Sharanyam Gato Mukundam Pari Ritya Kartam. Anyone who has taken the shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation. Yaha Sharanyam Sarvatmana. Sarvatmana means complete surrender. He can give up all kinds of obligations. He doesn't have any obligations towards demigods, Deva Rishi, Deva and Rishis. Bhutapta, living entities. Apta is referring to Bhuta and Apta. Bhuta is referring to all living entities. Apta is referring to family members. Rinam, humankinds. Pitrinam, forefathers. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by performance of devotional service to the person that is important. Now, we will not go into an elaborate discussion about this verse, because this verse is not easily understood by devotees. But here the point is that as long as one has not completely surrendered to Krishna 100%, there will be sense of obligations within the family members. Not only that, if you have not performed the Vedic rituals for the forefathers who have left this world, even that karma will trouble you. And you have to fulfill those obligations. And what to speak in general dealings with people in this world, when you have done some, somebody has done favor to you, you will have to also fulfill that obligation by gratitude, by good words, by giving gifts. This reciprocation has to happen from both the sides. Then only the obligation is fulfilled. Now, in the family setup, there is obligation we feel because of family affection, familial affection, affection due to the body. And these obligations are what are binding us to family duties in one sense. So in a Krishna conscious perspective, we should do these duties as from a Krishna centric viewpoint, and not so much because of the bodily connections. So that is how we should, in our Krishna conscious practice, we should do. But there is always this sense of obligation, and it is mostly because of the bodily concept of life, until one has come to the point of complete surrender. Now, what to speak? Sometimes devotees, before coming to Krishna consciousness, they might be worshipping some devta, and they understand the philosophy, they take up the Krishna consciousness, but sometimes they feel oh, maybe yearly once I should worship this Devata, he feels a sense of obligation that I know so many years I've worshipped this Devata, how can I give up? So why he's feeling this sense of obligation is because he has not full taken surrender of Krishna. Sarvatmana yaha sharan sharanyam. Sharanam sharanyam. He is not fully taken shelter with all seriousness. Prabhupada is taken. That is full surrender. And these obligations are fulfilled. So he doesn't feel that. But if he has not fully surrendered, he feels that sense of obligation. So this is the point I wanted to mention. I hope it is clear, Mataji, Dr. Archana Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, completely.
Okay. So we will go to the next. Yes, Sunita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I had this question that obligations with respect to devotees.
With respect to devotees.
Yes.
Obligation with respect to devotees, here we need to follow the principle of Upadeshamrit. Dadati pratigranati, bhuyyam akhyati prishti, bhumte bhojate chaiva, shadvitam priti lakshanam. And it is done with gratitude and affection. And these are on a spiritual platform. So in one sense, you have to internally see at what level is the exchange. It is merely because of duty or merely because of love. So in that sense, we will have to weigh this, and accordingly we'll have to act. Now I'll give you a simple practical example what I personally experienced few months back. That I happened to be at Radhakund to take darshan of Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami Samadhi. And I was just sitting and chanting, and Pujari there, a devotee, Gaudiya Vaishnava devotee, who was doing some service, he spontaneously invited us to take prasadam in his bhajan kutir. And, he served us very nice Krishna prasad. And after that, he was so dedicated and devoted that he had a small kutir with practically nothing but a new shawl and a gunjmala. He offered it to me with so much affection and devotion that I could not say no. And I accepted just to honor him. And in fact, he gave me some dakshina that whenever you go to Mayapur, please pray for me. So being a very senior Vaishnava and I being very junior, I still had to accept it because it was done with so much devotion. Now, I wanted to reciprocate with him by offering something, but I felt inside that, nothing I can really do for his reciprocation because it was done with pure devotion. So with a great gratitude, I left from there. And although I bought a shawl for him, but still, next time when I went to meet him, he was not available. The next time when I went, I did not carry the shawl. So like that, it happened. And since I could understand that maybe our exchange was more on a spiritual platform. So that sense of obligation to do it in a duty sense, oh, he has given me something, I have to give it back. So that was not there. So we'll have to see that we follow Rūpa Goswami's principle of text for Upadeshamrit, Dadati Pratipunati. And we have to see that we follow that principle in our exchange with Vaishnavas. And with other things, we have a sense of duty. And that sense of duty is there. So we have to see that, and accordingly, both have to be balanced till we come to the point of surrender, complete surrender. When we come to the point of complete surrender, it's a very exalted platform where Madhavendra Puriyas can say Sandhyan Vandam Tubhyam. I offer my obeisances to Sandhya Vandam 3 times taking bath. I offer my obeisances, all giving up all these obligations, even to the bodily needs, on a Paramhamsa stage. So that level of surrender is very rare and nobody can imitate it. But at least when we come to the surrender, complete stage of surrender, where we are Madhyamadhikaris, we are practicing Raganuga Bhakti after Nishtha, till then these obligations are there. And accordingly, based on our relationship with devotees or family members, or with even the whole creation as such, we'll have to act accordingly. I hope this clarifies your question, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu, but it's very difficult to follow.
Yes, you'll have to start practicing it. What to speak in today's age, even in devotees' families, what to speak in outside families, they don't feel an obligation to their parents to take care when they are old. Sometimes they leave the family and stay separately when they get married. Nobody feels obligation for any devatas nowadays, nor rishis. That consciousness is gone. We are, in such a low state of consciousness in Kali Yuga. Obligation to other living entities. These all, we have forgotten, but we have to understand that these are there as long as we have not come to the point of complete surrender to Krishna. So I will take few more verses. I want to take few more verses and complete a certain section. And then after that, I'll take up some more questions on this. Okay. So let us go now to the next verse. This was a very important philosophy point, and that's why I went into detail. Okay. Now we know why Sanatana Goswami had to stay back and what that sense of obligation was and how he cut that obligation with this exchange with the king. And because of that obligation, Sanatana Goswami had to go through the prison cell, had to experience that staying in the jail. So you can understand how obligations also bind us in the material world. Okay. Now, see the connection also what king, he told arrest, but how? Even the Nawab felt obligation towards Sanatana Goswami, that affection, family. Hena kale gela raja udiya marite Sanatane kahe tumi chal mora sate. At this time, Hena kale, the Nawab was going to attack the province of Odisha. Gela raja udiya marite. Udiya means Udiya Desh. And he told Sanatana Goswami, Sanatana kahe, come along with me. Chal mora sate. Because he felt the obligation, he still felt the connection. Nawab, come along with me. So that time, what Sanatana says, we will see. But Prabhupada is giving the purport. Again, he is giving the date. Hussain Shah attacked the neighboring province of Orissa in 1424. That was the year Sanatana Goswami was also reading Bhagavatam. At that time, he conquered the feudal princes there. So actually, he conquered there. Teno kahe yabe tumi devataya dukkha dite mora shakti nahi tomara sange yaite. Sanatana Goswami replied, Teno kahe, you are going to Orissa to give pain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By attacking Orissa, that is Jagannath Puri. So you're going to give pain to the Lord. For this reason, I am powerless to go with you. Mora Shakti Nahi, Tumara Sangha Yaite. So I have no power to come with you. Tabe Tandra Bandi Raki Karila Gaman Eta Nila Chala Haite Prabhu Chalila Vrindavan. Thus the Nawab arrested Sanatana Goswami. So he ordered arrest, but still he said, come along with me to attack Orissa. At least you are not tending to your or my duties here. Then even that proposal, because it was attack on Jagannath Puri or Orissa Paranta, he rejected. I don't have power to come with you. That time, Tabe Tandra Bandi, he bound him. And Eta Nila Chalahete Prabhu Chalila. At this time, exactly when this event happened, at that time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed from Vrindavan, from Jagannath Puri. So the Nawab attacked Orissa. That time Mahaprabhu left or departed to Vrindavan. Okay. Now the next section is, we will take few verses from this section and then take up the question answers if there are any. Rūpa Goswami and Anupam meet Lord Chaitanya at Prayag. So Mahaprabhu leaves from Puri to Vrindavan, and here Rūpa Goswami has made the arrangements, and he had also sent 2 messengers to find out. That will come up now. And when he understands that Mahaprabhu has left, he also leaves. And Mahaprabhu, while returning from Vrindavan, and they, while going towards Vrindavan, meet at Prayag. So that meeting and discussion, what happens here is mentioned from text 31 to 60. Okay, now what Rūpa Goswami does, let us see. Tabe se duichar Rūpa thani aila Vrindavan chaliya Prabhu Asiya kahili. The 2 persons who went to Jagannath Puri to inquire about the Lord's departure returned. Rūpa thani aila, and informed Rūpa Goswami that the Lord had already departed from Vrindavan. Vrindavan chalila Prabhu Asiya kahili. They spoke like this. So Rūpa Goswami has sent 2 messengers. Now they came back and told that the Lord has departed to Vrindavan. Shunya Shri Rūpa likhila sanatana thani Vrindavana chaliya Shri Chaitanya Gosaini. Upon receiving this message from the 2 messengers, Shunya, Rūpa Goswami immediately wrote a letter to Sanatana Goswami. Shri Rūpa likhila sanatana thani, saying that Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had departed from Vrindavan. Vrindavana chalila Shri Chaitanya Gosai. Because Chaitanya Gosai left for Vrindavan. He gave this message to Sanatana Goswami. Ami dui bhai chalilan tahare milite tumi aiche chuti asi tahan haite. In his letter to Sanatana Goswami, Rūpa Goswami wrote, we 2 brothers are starting out to go see Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You must also somehow or other get released and come to meet us. So this was the letter he mentioned. Prabhupada, the 2 brothers herein mentioned are Rūpa Goswami and his elder brother Anupam Malik. Rūpa Goswami was informing Sanatana Goswami that he should join him and his younger brother. Dasha sahasra mudra taha ache mudistane taha diya kare shigra atma vimochane. So he also said what? Rūpa Goswami further informed Srila Sanatana Goswami, I have left a deposit of 10,000 coins with the grocer. Mudistane dasha sahasra mudra. Use that money and get out of the prison. Taha diya kare shigra atma vimochan. So Rūpa Goswami knew that Sanatana Goswami was now arrested, and he had specifically kept some money with the grocer so that he can use it to become free from the prison. Aiche taiche chuti tumi asi Vrindavan etaliki dui boy karila gaman. Some other, get yourself released and come to Vrindavan. After writing this, the 2 brothers, Rūpa and Anupam, went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After writing all this, dui boy karila gaman. So they went to meet Mahaprabhu. Anupama Malik Tanra Naam Shri Vallabha Rūpa Gosaira Chota Boy Parama Vaishnava. Rūpa Goswami's younger brother was a great devotee, Parama Vaishnava, whose actual name was Shri Vallabh Naam, Tanra Naam. But he was given the name Anupam Malik. Tanalana Rūpa Gosaine Prayage Aila Mahaprabhu Tahan Shuni Anandita Haila. Rūpa Goswami and Anupam Malik went to Prayag, and they were very pleased to hear the news that Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there. So Mahaprabhu was there. They were on the way, and in Prayag, they meet together. Prabhu Chaliyachen Bindu Madhav Darshane Laksha Laksha Lok Asi Prabhura Milane. At Prayag, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to see the temple of Bindu Madhav Darshane, and many thousands of people followed him just to meet him. So this Bindu Madhav is Veni Madhav. That's what the devotees in Prayagraj, when I visited, devotees were saying that on the bank of Yamuna is the Veni Madhav temple. Madhav is Krishna and Veni is actually the women take their hair and make three different ropes, like, and then they put a braid. So three different rivers meet at Prayag, the Ganga and the Yamuna, and the Saraswati is Lupta now. It is unmanifested, but the Saraswati is there flowing internally. So all the three rivers confluence is Prayag. So Veni means these three rivers, and Veni Madhav means Krishna along with Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. In one sense, they are their consorts. So Bindu Madhav is Veni Madhav is what the local devotees speak about. So Mahaprabhu had gone to visit this beautiful temple of Bindu Madhav. Keha kande, keha hase, keha nache gaye, Krishna Krishna boli keha, gadagadi yai. So these people who were following in Laksha Laksha, what was their effect? Some people following the Lord were crying, keha kande. Some were laughing, keha hase. Some were dancing, keha nache, gaye, some chanting. Indeed, some of them were rolling on the ground, exclaiming, Krishna, Krishna Krishna bole, gadagadi yai. Ganga Yamuna Prayaga, Narila Dubita, Dubaite, Prabhu Dubaila, Krishna Premera, Vanayate. Prayag is located at the confluence of two rivers, Ganga, the Ganges, and the Yamuna. Ganga, Yamuna, Prayaga, Narila, Dubaite. Although the rivers are not able to flood Prayag with water, Prayaga, Narila, Dubaite. Prayag is not, because of the confluence of two rivers, Prayag doesn't get overflowed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indented the whole area with the waves of ecstatic love for Krishna. Prabhu Dubaila, but Mahaprabhu flooded Prayag with Krishna Prem. So I will stop here. This last verse I will take and stop here. Bheed deki dui bhai rahila nirjane prabhura avesha hela madhava darshane. Seeing the great crowd, Bheed deki, the two brothers remained standing in a secluded place. Rahila nirjane. They could see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was ecstatic to see Lord Bindu Madhav. Prabhura avesha hela madhava darshane. So they saw that how the Lord had become ecstatic having the darshan of Madhav. Text 41 onwards, we will continue tomorrow. How Mahaprabhu will meet the two brothers, Rūpa and Anupam, is the discussion. And there also happens a very important incident, that is the incident where Vallabh Bhatt meets. Now, why it is very important to discuss about Vallabh Bhatt here in this section, and why I did not directly go to Rūpa Śikṣā, which begins from text 135, is there is a deep reason for it. And there we will discuss that when we come to that section. Prabhupada in his purports also makes it very clear. Although Vallabh Bhatt had the great fortune to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, get his mercy, but the real mercy was obtained by Rūpa and Anupam. And that's why given instructions, philosophical conclusions of Bhakti Ras. And this Bhakti Ras was not in one sense revealed to Vallabh. So reasons why they are, we will come to that discussion in the tomorrow's class. So to summarize what we discussed today, we discussed how Sanatana felt and his kingdom's angrily. Then my obligation may be cut. So he sat and he was staying with the Brahmanas around there. That was expected because the vibhuti of Krishna